Hello there, traveler of thoughts. Before we begin, allow yourself a few moments to settle in. Breathe in slowly and feel the air slip gently into your lungs, and then out again, soft and quiet. Let your limbs grow heavy and warm. Imagine a hush descending, like the softness of woolen blankets laid over your body, one at a time, until only your breathing remains. There's nothing you need to do now but listen. Let the weight of the day drift far behind you, left outside in the dark like a pair of worn shoes by a monastery door. The winds have quieted, the world has dimmed, and we are now safe inside, in the stillness of another time. Our story today begins in the winter of the year 1227, long before the world ticked by the sound of clocks or chimed with digital alerts. Back when time was told by sun and bell, by candle and cold. I imagine waking in a narrow stone cell just before dawn. The walls are smooth and gray and carry the scent of centuries of smoke and parchment, of lavender, of the faint trace of incense. You are a novice monk at a remote Benedictine monastery, nestled deep in a pine-laced valley, where snow settles thick upon the rooftops, and the silence is so vast it feels like the earth itself is holding its breath. Beneath your straw-stuffed pallet lies the chilled floor, and above you beams of dark wood grown softly with age. You wear a robe the color of faded bark, thick but scratchy against your skin, and your feet bare this morning curl at the touch of the cold flagstones beneath you. There is no clock. Time here is announced by bells. The first of the day tolls faintly, now matins calling. The brothers from sleep long before the sun dares lift its golden face. You rise not with resistance, but with reverence. In this place, to be weary is not a burden, it is a gift, a reminder that your body, like the earth, knows cycles and stillness. You press your hands together in a quiet prayer, thanking the Lord for your breath, for your limbs, and for the discipline to begin again. The hallway outside is narrow and dim. A single candle sputters against the stone wall, its glow caught in a simple glass lantern. Other brothers join you in silence. No one speaks not because you're forbidden, but because silence here is sacred. It's not emptiness, but fullness. Every quiet footstep echoes like a whispered hymn. You descend toward the chapel, where a great iron brazier burns, just enough to take the sting from the air. The chapel is cavernous, with wooden pews, smoothed by generations of kneeling. The windows are tall and narrow, admitting only the ghost of light. You kneel in unison, the fabric of many robes rustling like autumn leaves in still air. Matins is long and meditative. The psalms are sung in Latin, their syllables rising and falling like gentle waves across the stone nave. Some of the brothers sway slightly as they chant, their breath visible in the cold. You sing too, though your voice is soft and shy, still learning the cadence of this new world. The repetition is comforting, like the turning of a water wheel. You do not need to think here only to be, to breathe, to echo. After the prayers, you are led to the cloisters. This is where monks walk in quiet contemplation. The cloister garden is rimmed with columns, open to the elements in its center. Snow dusts the herbs that grow even in the cold sage rosemary, and wormwood and tiny birds flit from shadow to shadow, puffed against the frost. You walk the cloister path slowly, your hands tucked inside your sleeves. This is the hour for Lectio Divina, divine reading, and you clutch a small wooden tablet in one hand, its surface etched with a passage from the Psalms. You will read it many times today, whispering it into the cold until its rhythm lives inside your bones. Afterward comes the meal fraternal refectory, a silent breakfast of boiled grains, dried figs, and a bit of soft cheese. You eat with a wooden spoon, seated on a long bench beside your brothers. One of them reads aloud from a sacred text as you eat, always reading, always remembering that even nourishment is an act of the divine. You chew slowly, feeling the warmth spread from your belly outward, like sunlight behind clouds. Here, every bite is humble and holy. The day has only begun. Soon after your duties call, you are assigned to the scriptorium today, where the monastery's ancient texts are copied by hand. This is considered a great honor. The room is long and narrow, filled with desks and windows angled to catch the best of the daylight. Your fingers are red and stiff from the cold, but you dip your quill into the inkwell and begin anyway. Letter by letter, you copy the words with care, pausing to warm your hands near the flickering oil lamp at your station. The monks believe that every stroke of the pen is a prayer, every curve of a letter a devotion offered to God. It is tedious work, but there is a rhythm to it, a peacefulness that settles like snow. Outside the windows, the storm has gathered. Snow falls in earnest now, flakes spinning like downy feathers. The wind howls across the courtyard, but inside it is quiet and purposeful. There are no distractions here, no interruptions. Only time stretched thin like golden thread and the slow passage of sun over stone. Somewhere a bell tolls again, terse marking the third hour of prayer. You set down your pen, stretch your aching fingers, and rise. And so the day continues, gentle, slow, and filled with ritual. The rhythms of prayer, work, reading, and reflection form the pillars of your world. The silence isn't oppressive, it's freeing. Without chatter, every sound becomes a gift. The creak of floorboards, the crackle of fire, the whisper of breath beside you in chapel, each one a sacred note in the monastery's eternal hymn. And as the hours slip by, you begin to feel it, the quiet transformation that happens here, the letting go, the settling in, the peace that arrives not from comfort, but from constancy. But the night is far from over. After the sun has set and the stars emerge like frost glints in the black sky, you return to your cell for a brief rest before vigils the midnight prayers that come in the coldest hours. You lie down on your straw-stuffed mattress wrapped in your robe, the hood drawn over your ears. Your breath curls in the air like smoke. Your muscles ache gently. The day has worn you down, and yet you feel something blooming in that weariness, a kind of stillness you never knew before. You drift into sleep, but only for a while, for soon the bell will ring again, and you will rise once more into the darkness, into prayer, into silence, into the ancient and eternal rhythm of the monastic life. The bell tolls, deep and solemn. It vibrates through the stone walls like a heartbeat too large for one body alone. Midnight has come, the hour of vigils. You wake not from comfort, but from duty eyes heavy, joints reluctant, the straw beneath you still warm, yet there is no protest. This is not a life where comfort comes first. It is a life of order, simplicity, and obedience. You pull your robe tighter, cinch the coarse wool belt around your waist, and step out into the chill corridor, where torches crackle low in their iron brackets, and the air smells faintly of beeswax and smoke. You crawl beneath your woolen blanket, the frost gathering faintly, on the inside of your window. You fall asleep more quickly this time, the chant still humming in your bones, the rhythm of prayer lulling you into a dreamless dark. Time passes, or perhaps it doesn't. In the monastery, days do not tick by, they simply deepen. You step out into the snow-light morning with a cloak wrapped over your robe, the scent of thyme and rosemary sharp beneath the frost. The garden is sleepy, blanketed in ice, but still alive. Inside raised beds made from planks of wood, root vegetables sleep beneath the soil. You return to the chapel for terce, the third prayer of the day, followed by another brief meal. The text you're copying is old so old that pieces of the page crumble at your touch. A psalter, bound in leather the color of dried blood, its margins lined with curling vines and gold leaf accents. You don't illuminate pages yet. That is a task for the older scribes, but you copy the letters carefully, dipping your quill into black ink mixed with a bit of iron gall. You eat in the refectory once again, while a young monk reads from a passage about the life of Saint Cuthbert, who once lived in total silence on a sea-washed rock for 7 years. The candles here are fewer, the songs softer. Some monks lean against the pews, exhausted but devout. A few hours of sleep await. You return to your cell, hands still tingling from cold and prayer. Your robe rustles as you remove your belt and lie down. The straw beneath you shifts. The blanket covers you, and you exhale slowly, deeply, feeling your heartbeat slow. The wind still whispers at the window, but it cannot reach you. Not now. Not in here. In this ancient, quiet world, you are cradled by time. You kneel with them, the ache in your knees now familiar, even comforting. The last lines are spoken softly. Into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. You wonder if the sea was lonelier than the monastery, or perhaps just louder. You sip your broth, warmed from the inside, and imagine waves lapping stone. Each stroke must be perfect. You hold your breath without realizing it as you write. Lentils this time. A slice of coarse brown bread. Some dried pear slices, slightly sticky with age. You eat slowly. You stop for a moment, hands resting on the edge of your desk, and listen. No bright lamps, no electric light, just the slow disappearance of the sun, the shadows stretching longer like ink poured down the walls. When the light is gone, the monks stop writing. You clean your tools, roll up the vellum, and leave the scriptorium with stiff legs and ink-stained fingers. The evening bell calls you to vespers, the last major prayer of the day. The singing is slower now. The candles seem to burn with thicker silence. There's something soothing about the repetition, the sameness, the structure. It holds you like a blanket holds heat. The fire in the corner crackles low. A few flakes drift through a crack in the glass above, melting instantly on the warm sill. You watch them vanish, and then you write again. The food is not exciting, but it is warm, and when you eat it with others in silence, it tastes like peace. The monks grow everything here: onions, leeks, turnips, beans, even rare plants used for healing: comfrey, tansy, yarrow. You move slowly down the rows, checking for damage, brushing away snow, offering small thanks aloud in a whisper for each living thing that endures the cold. Other brothers are stirring too, silent shadows moving along the arched walkway. You wash with cold water from a ceramic bowl. No fire, no soap, only your hands, the freezing water, and a plain linen cloth. There is a purity in it, even if your fingers ache. The sky outside your cell is turning pale. Soon, a thin golden light spills across the stone floor like melted butter. The hush is even deeper at this hour midnight silence within an already silent world. The brothers work in silence, but there is always a sense of unity, like notes in a slow, quiet song. You grow tired, of course. Your fingers are numb, your breath puffs in steady clouds, but the act of doing, not hurrying, not performing, just doing grounds you. You file in beside your brothers. Some are old, their faces furrowed like ancient tree bark. Others, like you, are young, their eyes still learning to let go of the world they once knew. He hums a hymn to them as he works his voice so low and gentle that the bees seem soothed, even in winter dormancy. He once told you that the hives were blessed during Easter and that the bees remember who blesses them. You smiled at the time, but now you wonder if he's right. Together you kneel. Together you chant. The sounds return so familiar now that they echo within you, even when unsung. Latin syllables that wash over you like water domini, exaudi, or rationem meme. The chant flows low and slow like smoke curling from a censer. The words are not always understood with the mind, but they're absorbed by the heart. Your sandals pad softly across the flagstones, your breath rising like incense in the cold. It is a way of shaping your soul, sanding down the distractions, the impatience, the need for comfort. And in that stillness, something beautiful opens. A space, a silence inside the silence. You feel it more than you hear it. The presence of something ancient and vast, not watching, but waiting, accepting. Outside, the wind scrapes softly against the stained glass windows, and snow continues to fall. You feel the press of the weather beyond the walls, the quiet fury of it. But in here, it is still. The chapel is lit by candlelight, alone now. Dozens of small flames flicker along the altar, casting soft amber reflections on the polished wood and worn pews. The prayers are long. The cold creeps up through your knees and into your thighs, but you do not fidget. You remain still. This is not a punishment. When vigils ends, the monks quietly return to their cells. By dawn, you are awake again. Another bell, another day. Today you are assigned to the garden. The monastery's herb garden is enclosed by a low stone wall and protected from the wind by tightly woven hedgerows. Brother Aswan, the oldest monk in the abbey, tends the beehives nearby. After gardening comes manual labor splitting wood, preparing a section of cracked stone in the cloister walk, sweeping snow from the courtyard. The mid-morning bell tolls. You're sent again to the scriptorium after the meal. Outside, the wind moans softly, like a voice trapped beneath snow. Evening descends gradually. After vespers, the final meal is served. It's light, mostly broth, a boiled egg, and a bit of barley. Before bed, there is one last visit to the chapel compline, the closing prayer, and then the quiet. No more bells until midnight. Your eyes close, the rhythm continues, the bells will ring again. But for now, rest. The snow has thickened now, days into your week within the monastery. Outside the high stone walls, drifts pile like sleeping animals along the edges of the cloister paths. Each window holds a rim of frost, etched in delicate spirals that resemble the Latin flourishes you've been copying by hand. The world beyond the monastery has shrunk to silence, a silence so complete that you can hear the echo of your own heartbeat within the chapel's stone hollows. Yet here, within these walls, life continues with perfect rhythm, prayer, work, reflection, rest, like breath. Inhale, exhale, endlessly. This morning begins with Lauds, the sunrise prayer. The first light slants through the narrow, stained glass windows as you kneel beside your brothers. The glass paints the floor in soft reds and blues, falling across the bent backs and still shoulders of men who have lived this life for decades. You are beginning to understand how it changes a person, not suddenly like a flame, but slowly like weather-wearing stone. You don't notice, at first, how your steps grow quieter, how your breath moves in time with the chant, how you no longer seek distraction during the long pauses between prayers. After lauds, you return to the scriptorium. The work of copying continues. Your hand is steadier now, your letters more confident. Today you're assigned a text on the life of St. Anthony, who fled to the desert to live in solitude and fought temptation with nothing but his thoughts. As you copy his story word by word, line by line, you feel the parallels in your own journey, the withdrawal from the world, the long hours of silence, the confrontation with discomfort, and the sense that in every discomfort lies a lesson waiting quietly, patiently, to be learned. Your quill scrapes across the vellum in a soothing rhythm. Scratch, pause, dip, scratch. The ink smells faintly of iron and must. A candle flickers beside your desk, illuminating the page in a soft golden hue. You work slowly, methodically, not for praise, but because this is your offering. Each copied word is a gift to those who will one day read this book, perhaps long after you are gone. You will not sign your name. Monks do not seek recognition. The work is not yours. It belongs to God. In the afternoon, you are assigned to assist in the kitchen. The cook, Brother Allard, speaks little, but smiles often. He hands you a bowl of lentils to stir and a bundle of leeks to clean. The kitchen is warm, a blessed change from the rest of the monastery. The fire pops gently beneath the iron cauldrons, and steam fogs the narrow windows. You work in silence, side by side with the others, preparing the evening's meal of soup and black bread, no spices, no sweetmeats, just nourishment, plain and clean. As you stir, Brother Allard hums a hymn under his breath, and the sound settles over the room like soft wool. While the soup simmers, you are sent to the root cellar to retrieve more onions. The stairs leading down are steep and worn. Your candlelight dances along the earthen walls as you descend. The cellar is lined with shelves of dried beans, garlic braids, and hanging bunches of herbs. The air is cold, and the stone floor is slick with condensation. You find the basket of onions and carry it carefully back up, the smell of earth clinging to your hands. Even this simple act feels meaningful. No action is wasted here. Everything has purpose. Later, during your evening walk through the cloisters, you catch sight of something strange, a robin hopping across the snow, its red breast bright against the white. You stop and watch, transfixed by this sudden burst of color and motion. It pecks the ground, ruffles its feathers, and then flits up to a branch where it disappears among the snow-dusted leaves. The moment is small, but it stays with you. In a place where days seem to repeat, tiny moments like this become treasures. They are the chimes of the natural world, ringing in the silence, reminding you that beauty continues, even in stillness. As night falls, you light your candle and return to your cell. Your hands ache from writing and chopping, your knees from kneeling, your back from lifting. But beneath the ache, there is a quiet fullness. You've spent another day in service, another day in discipline, another day in the slow, sacred rhythm of this cloistered life. You settle onto your straw mattress, wrap yourself in your robe, and pull the blanket to your chin. The wind sings softly outside. Somewhere in the chapel, a candle snuffs out with a soft pop, and in the darkness you feel the monastery breathing around you, ancient, calm, unchanging. You fall asleep without effort, without question. Your body has learned the pattern. It obeys the rhythm, and in that rhythm you find peace, until that familiar bell. Again, midnight returns, and so too must you. The fourth night of vigils. You wake as if from a whisper, sit up without complaint, and rise into the cold. Each movement is slow and deliberate. You walk to the chapel in near darkness, guided only by flickering torches and memory. When you arrive, the candles have already been lit. The others are kneeling. You join them. The chant begins. The words rise and fall like breath. You no longer follow each line with your mind, but with your heart. The syllables settle into your bones, as familiar now as your own pulse. This is not just prayer, it is immersion. You are no longer an outsider to this world. You are part of the rhythm, part of the stillness, part of the vow, and yet there is a test tonight. You feel it as you return to your cell after vigils. Your body aches more than usual. Your mind wanders toward warmth and softness, toward escape. You lie down, but sleep will not come. The silence feels louder, the shadows longer, the wind sharper. This, too, is part of the monastic life, the challenge, the desert of the soul. You stare at the ceiling and wait, not for sleep, but for stillness to return. Eventually, it does, and with it, rest. You have made it through 4 days, 3 more to come, and already something inside you has changed. You're not sure what, but you feel it, and in the hush between the tolling bells, it speaks, softly, patiently, like the monastery itself. By the 5th day, the world outside the monastery feels like a story told in another tongue. You can no longer remember what time meant before the bells began to rule your hours. Here time is not rushed. It does not demand. It moves like a stream beneath a frozen crust steadily, secretly, without notice. You wake, you pray, you work, you listen. Life in the monastery is not measured in accomplishments, but in quiet endurance. Each day is a brick laid carefully side by side with those that came before, and your wall is beginning to rise. This morning begins not with prayer, but with service. You've been chosen to help in the infirmary, a quiet stone room warmed by a single hearth, tucked at the end of a corridor few speak of. Here the sick are cared for, not just the monks, but poor travelers too, sometimes taken in on bitter nights when the snow is thick and the road home is too far. The room smells of pine tar and vinegar, lavender and damp cloth. Brother Simeon, the monastery's healer, nods when you arrive. He gives you a task, Change the compressors, warm water over the brazier, mix a poultice of ground mustard seed and honey. There's a man lying on one of the straw pallets. His face is pale, eyes closed, a strip of cloth tied around his brow. He doesn't speak. You wipe his forehead gently with a damp linen square and listen to the soft rattle of his breath. This moment, too, is a prayer. In the monastery, actions become offerings. The lifting of a spoon, the stirring of a pot, the folding of cloth, each is done not with speed, but with reverence. You move slowly, deliberately, and though the man says nothing, you feel he knows. There is no need to speak here, only to be. Later, you help Brother Simeon crush dried roots for a tonic. His hands are steady despite the tremble of age, his voice a whisper above the crackling fire. He tells you the names of each root: angelica, valerian, gentian, and their uses. He speaks of humors and bile, of winds trapped in the body, of prayers stitched into cloth and tied around wrists to protect against fever. You listen closely, not to become a healer, but to understand the monastery better. Every cell of it, each person, each plant, each bell is part of the whole. A living, breathing devotion. When the bell calls for sext, the 6th hour, you wash your hands and head back to the chapel. The sun outside is sharp on the snow now, and it floods the chapel with a glow that turns the floor to gold. You kneel beside your brothers, your knees finding the familiar grooves in the stone. You sing with them, your voice no longer shy. It joins theirs like a thread in a tapestry, woven, small, but necessary. The chant wraps around the space like incense, curling upward, drifting toward the rafters, where it dissolves into dust motes and sunbeams. After prayers, you are granted time for solitary study. You walk to the library through a covered walkway lined with carved arches. The snow is melting slowly on the edge of the roof, dripping into stone basins below. Each drip echoes, soft and steady. Inside the library, the air is dry and papery. You can smell the leather bindings and the ink, the age and wisdom, resting on the wooden shelves. You're given a book about Saint Benedict, his rules, his life, his teachings. You sit on a bench and read slowly, running your fingers lightly along the edge of the pages. His rule speaks of humility, obedience, stability, of being content with less, of becoming small enough to be filled with something greater. Time drips like water. You do not look for a clock. You do not count the hours. The sun shifts, the bell rings. You move as you are called. The afternoon takes you to the stables, not for horses, but for goats and hens. A novice's job, but no less important. The goats nuzzle your hand with damp noses. Their breath steams in the air, and their hooves clack gently on the straw-covered floor. You scoop grain into their troughs, refill the water, brush down their coats. You collect the eggs from the hens, warm in your hands despite the winter. The hens cluck softly, hopping between shadows. You thank them under your breath. Gratitude, you've learned, is constant here, given for food, for breath, for snow, even for silence. You pause for a moment outside the stable, the cold biting at your cheeks. The hills beyond the monastery walls glow pale in the late light. The pines are dark against the snow. Crows pass overhead, their wings soundless, their flight steady. It is beautiful, but not the kind of beauty you would have noticed before. It is a quiet beauty, the kind you feel, not see. It sinks into you, stays. Evening comes. Another prayer, another meal. Another return to the cell. You light your candle. Sit on the edge of your bedding. Remove your sandals. Your fingers are chapped and ink-stained. Your knees are sore. But your breathing is deep, steady. A new calm has settled into you. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that waits. You lie down, folding your hands across your chest. Above you, the candlelight dances across the curved ceiling like golden leaves caught in wind. You close your eyes and listen to the wind, to the bell in your memory, to the silence you now understand, the silence that doesn't mean emptiness, but fullness. Tomorrow will come with its cold water, with its kneeling, with its garden and ink and prayer. You do not dread it. You do not crave it. You simply receive it. And that, perhaps, is the first true lesson of this place. You are not here to achieve. You are here to be. On the sixth day, your body no longer protests the cold. It expects it. You wake before the bell this time, not out of anxiety or habit, but out of alignment. Something inside you rises when it's time to rise, like the sun turning toward the frost-bitten earth. You sit up in your straw bed and your blanket falls in soft folds beside you. A few flakes of snow have drifted in through the narrow window during the night, landing silently on the stone floor like forgotten thoughts. You gather your robe, thick and worn, and move through the dim corridor, already knowing how many steps it will take to reach the torch on the wall. The chapel feels warmer this morning, though the air is no different. Perhaps it's the familiarity, the way your heart no longer races from sleep when you kneel, the way the hush of the others once strange and watchful now feels like a shared breath. You murmur the midnight psalms softly, your voice steady despite the hour. Around you, heads bow, shoulders still beneath layers of wool. One brother sneezes quietly, and the sound seems almost holy in the otherwise perfect silence. When the final amen is whispered, you feel something like peace, not excitement, not relief, just peace, that deep, old kind of peace, the kind that feels earned. When morning light arrives, it comes not with fanfare, but with soft transformation. The gray stone walls turn silver. The ice on the windows begins to melt, one slow bead at a time, and the world returns to its day. You're assigned today to help in the laundry house down near the river. There is no soap in the modern sense, only ash lye, hot water, and stones to beat the linens clean. You carry the baskets of robes with Brother Wolfric, whose arms are strong from years of this work. He does not speak, but his movements are careful, almost elegant. You mimic him. Lay the linen in the water. Scrub it smooth with your palms. Beat it against the washing stone in a soft, steady rhythm. The splash echoes through the narrow building, mingling with the distant sound of the river and the sighing wind in the pine trees beyond the wall. You pause once to look out the open side of the laundry house. The river is moving faster today. Thin sheets of ice crack and shift as the current presses forward. There are no people along the bank, only birds. You watch a heron lift slowly into the air, its wings wide and deliberate. There's no rush to its flight, just the steady logic of motion, like the monastery itself. The robes are heavy with water when you wring them out. Your hands ache, but your mind is calm. The chill of the river air is sharper than the rest of the compound, but you do not shiver. You've become used to layers. Layers of wool, layers of routine, layers of silence. Later, as you hang the linens on ropes beneath the cloister arches, You notice how the wet fabric flaps gently in the wind, like ghostly sails waiting for a ship that never comes. The light filters through them, thin and golden, and for a moment it feels like you're standing in a place outside time, part of the living, breathing heart of a world that's barely changed for hundreds of years. At noon, the bell calls again. Another prayer, another song. Another hour slipped gently into the hands of devotion. You notice that fewer things surprise you now. The schedule, the tasks, the cold all familiar. But that doesn't mean they've become meaningless. In fact, they mean more. Because they've been emptied of novelty, they reveal themselves for what they truly are. Simple acts of quiet reverence. Each one a stone in the path. Each one a word in the unspoken prayer that is your week in the monastery. You pass by Brother Oswin's beehives on your way back to the cloisters. He's humming again, slow and tuneless, and the sound blends with the rustling of the wind in the cedar branches. The hives are still covered in snow, but he checks them gently, pressing his ear to the wood and nodding at the faint hum within. They survive, he says softly, his first words to you in days, even in the cold. And then he smiles, like a secret has been shared. This evening, you are given a brief moment of free reflection, a rare allowance, meant for journaling or silent contemplation. You take your wooden tablet and a piece of charcoal and sit near the cloister wall, where the fading sun glows like a halo around the stone arches. You write slowly, unsure what to say, but the words come. I am no longer who I wived. You pause, look at the words. Then, beneath them, you write, but I do not know yet who I am becoming. That feels honest. And in this place, honesty is its own kind of holiness. The final prayers arrive with the dusk. The last chant of Copland seems slower tonight, more fragile. The candlelight flickers, and shadows stretch long between the pews. Some brothers are slumped with weariness, others upright in silent poise. The breath of the room is steady, the hush is whole. When the final words are spoken into your hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. You feel them land somewhere deep inside your chest. A familiar sentence, but tonight it feels like a closing door behind which you can rest. In your cell, you light your candle one last time for the day. The wax is nearly spent. The flame dances low. You lie down without effort, blanket pulled to your chin, and stare at the ceiling. It is smooth and gray and simple. And for the first time, you wonder, could you do this forever? Could you live in this rhythm? Could you let go of the world beyond the walls? Or would some part of you eventually call out? You do not answer that question. Instead, you close your eyes. Let the cold settle around you, and wait for the midnight bell. Your final day begins in darkness, but not the kind that frightens or hides. This is a darkness that wraps around you like a woolen cloak, a still, sacred kind of quiet. When the bell tolls for vigils, your eyes are already open. You rise without thought. There is no hesitation. The robe falls across your shoulders like an old friend, and your feet find the flagstones by memory. The monastery is unchanged, but something in you is different. Not louder, not stronger, just quieter, more sure. The chapel greets you with the usual hush, the gentle creak of benches, the slow flicker of waxen flames. The other brothers file in as they always do, some limping, some with straight backs, all in harmony with the moment. The air smells of candle smoke and stone dust. You take your place, kneel, begin the prayers. The Latin moves through you not as a recitation, but as a current. The words are not your own, but they no longer need to be. They are part of a river that began long before you, and will flow long after you are gone. The snow outside is falling again. You see it behind the stained glass, descending in slow spirals, soft and constant. A hush that answers the silence within. When the final song closes, no one moves for a few moments. You all remain still. You realize this stillness is the real purpose, not the words, not the posture, but the space they create. After vigils, you return to your cell. You do not sleep. Instead, you sit cross-legged on the straw bedding and listen, not for sound, but for presence. You hear the monastery itself, the sigh of wind beneath the eaves, the shifting of timber, the settling weight of centuries resting on every beam and brick. You are not alone. Even in silence, the building keeps you company. When Lauds arrives and the first blush of dawn paints the walls, you wash your face in cold water and make your way to the garden. The frost has returned, a thin sugar coating across every leaf and stone. Brother Martin is already there, gently brushing snow from the rosemary plants. You join him. The work is minimal this morning, nothing urgent. Just care, just presence. Together, you work without speaking, two shadows moving among the herbs. The scent of time clings to your fingers. A small robin lands on the wall and watches you. For a moment you watch it back, and the monastery fades. Only breath and wing beats and the soft scent of winter. Later you are invited into the scriptorium once more. Brother Elric, the master of the script, places a page before you. It is not a copy. It is blank. Fresh vellum, pale and smooth, stretched tight across a frame. Write what you've learned, he says simply, and walks away. You sit before it, quill in hand, for a long time. You think of the bells, the chanting, the aching knees, the river, the bees, the man in the infirmary, the silence, the hunger, the rhythm. You dip the quill into ink, begin writing. There is peace in small things. There is holiness in repetition. There is clarity in stillness. There is self in silence. You stop, place the quill down, let the ink dry. That's enough. After midday prayers, you help prepare the final meal you will share with the brothers. You slice bread, the crust warm and rough beneath your fingers. You ladle barley stew into simple wooden bowls. You carry them one by one to the refectory, the long hall where rows of brothers wait in silence. The reader stands at the lectern, reciting from the Rule of Saint Benedict. The brothers eat without speaking, their movements calm, unhurried. You eat slowly. Each bite feels both ordinary and sacred. You watch the others, how they chew, how they pause, how they accept the moment without expectation. You realize you have not touched a coin, seen a mirror, or heard your own name in days, and you do not miss them. After the meal, the abbot calls for you. His voice is like stone smoothed by water low and steady, not unkind. He walks with you through the cloisters, hands tucked into his sleeves. You've lasted longer than some, he says gently. Few understand the cost of quiet. Fewer accept it. He pauses. The snow falls around you. Will you stay? The question hangs between you like smoke from a snuffed candle. You want to say yes, you also want to say no. But the monastery has taught you something else. Not every question needs an answer now. He nods, as if he hears your silence clearly. Then rest. Let the final night teach you. You return to the chapel for Vespers. The prayers are slower tonight, thicker. The light from the candles pools around your feet like golden water. You feel the fatigue, but it's a welcome kind. The kind that comes not from stress, but from completion, like a field plowed or a song sung to its end. After prayers, you kneel in the chapel alone for a few extra minutes. You whisper a thank you not to a figure, but to the quiet itself, to the space this place made inside you. Then you return to your cell. The blanket feels heavier tonight, the candlelight warmer, the silence richer, and before sleep takes you, you whisper to the air, "I was here." And in the hush that follows, the monastery whispers back, "Yes, you were." When morning breaks on your final day, it arrives not with ceremony, but as a familiar presence slipping into the room. The gray light presses against the narrow window panes, and a soft chill lingers in the air. You wash your hands at the basin, careful not to spill even a drop. You tuck your fingers into your sleeves, then step into the corridor. Other figures move like shadows beside you, no longer strangers. The monastery breathes around you. The walls seem to hum with a rhythm you've come to understand, not with your ears, but with something deeper. You are already awake, not startled by the bell this time, but calm, steady, anticipating its voice before it even tolls. The prayers echo in that same timeless cadence. The flickering candlelight warms the cold stone walls in trembling shades of gold. You no longer fumble with the Latin. The syllables roll across your lips like tide on the shore. Everything here has a rhythm, a pulse, even the trees. You rake slowly, mindful of your steps. You find an apple, shriveled and forgotten, clinging to a low branch. The pages you've copied have been gathered into a tidy pile. No fanfare, no praise, no correction. Brother Eric glances at you, nods once, then continues his work without a word. That nod is enough. The smell of old wood, beeswax, and smoke clings to everything. You run the cloth across the grain, watching the water bead and roll. You think of the meals you've shared here in silence, bowls of broth, slices of bread, nothing fancy, nothing wasted. And yet they fed more than your stomach. Each meal was a quiet lesson in sufficiency. In gratitude, you leave it. Its time has passed, but it still holds place. You fold it slowly, smoothing the wrinkles with your palms. Beneath the blanket, your straw mattress waits, flattened from use, still smelling faintly of earth and time. You press your hand against it, the texture familiar now, welcoming, like the stone beneath your feet, like the prayers in your lungs. The warmth from the chapel's hearth drifts across your back. Lanterns are lit one by one, golden orbs flickering through the falling flakes. You walk along the edge of the cloister walk, letting the cold bite at your face. Your fingers are tucked into your sleeves, your breath drifting in white clouds. You pause at the statue of Saint Benedict in the corner alcove, and you, one more voice, drift upward with them. The chant rolls through the old wood rafters and slips through the cracks in the stone, out into the night, into the snow, into the sky. He holds a book in one hand, a cross in the other. His gaze is stone-set, but not unkind. It's subtle, but you feel it. A kindness. Your knees no longer ache. Your mind no longer wanders. His face is red with cold, but his eyes are steady. You nod. He nods. No words, no need. The quiet speaks for you. You are simply there, breathing, listening, repeating the ancient words as countless others have before you. You are a page in a book whose cover you may never see, but whose story you now help carry. Your voice is quiet, but part of the whole. You don't sing to be heard. You sing to be carried. You rise slowly, as if you've done this every morning of your life. Your body moves without command. Your mind is neither racing nor weary. You simply rise. The robe slips over your shoulders. Brother Adhelm walks with you, his gait slow but sure. The snow here is thinner beneath the trees, and patches of moss press through the frost like breath beneath a blanket. Bare branches stretch like fingers into the morning sky. You're given a rake, and together you clear fallen twigs and wind-swept leaves from beneath the roots. Inside the chapel, you kneel for lauds one final time. When the prayers end and the brothers file silently out, you remain, just for a moment, your hands still folded, your eyes half closed. The stillness wraps around you like a farewell. Then it's time for your last morning duties. You're assigned to the orchard, a place you haven't seen before. As you work, Brother Adhelm speaks gently, his voice soft as the shifting wind. These trees are older than most of the walls. They sleep in winter, but not without purpose. Even rest is part of the rhythm. You nod, understanding in a way you wouldn't have days ago. A few crows sit watching from the bare limbs overhead. They do not call. They only watch, black-eyed and still. By midday, you return to the scriptorium to clean your desk. Your inkwell is empty. Your blotter worn. The bell calls for sext, and again you kneel. Later you visit the refectory, not for a meal, but to help scrub the long tables. Brother Toma, a boy no older than 16, passes you a clean rag. As dusk creeps in, the snow begins again, soft as feathers. The courtyard glows under its powdery hush. You whisper, "Thank you," not expecting an answer, and yet feeling one anyway. You return to your cell to prepare for Compline. The robe you've worn all week hangs on the wall. When the bell tolls one last time, it does not startle you. You do not rush. You do not hesitate. You step into the chapel, candlelight warming your final walk beneath its arches. The brothers are already there, cloaked in the silence of the hour. The prayers begin. The voices rise. And then stillness. The last Amen. You remain kneeling, even after the others have risen. You do not want to leave, but you do, because that, too, is part of the rhythm, part of the vow. Even departures must be quiet. You return to your cell, one final time. The candle has burned low. You lie down slowly, wrapping yourself in the soft hush of this place. Outside, the snow continues to fall. Inside, you breathe. And sleep comes, not because you are tired, but because you are ready. And the monastery, as always, keeps its watch. There is no chant to rise for, no robe to smooth into place. The brothers move quietly through the corridor, and you sense that something is different, not in the place, which continues exactly as it always has, but in you. Your time here is ending. It isn't announced. There is no farewell feast or procession, just the same dawn light slipping through the narrow windows, the same crunch of feet on cold stone, the same curl of chimney smoke dissolving into the pale sky. You sit for a moment longer on your bedding, listening to the way the silence settles around you. Not the absence of sound, but the fullness of it. The kind that lives inside walls like these, that presses gently against the ribs and whispers, "Remember, When you step outside your cell, the air carries the scent of pine wood smoke and melting snow. The brothers are already preparing for their morning chores, some in the kitchen, some in the stable, some in the garden, hunched in wool cloaks beneath a pale sun. No one speaks of your leaving, not because it isn't known, but because here everything is understood in quiet. You help once more in the herbarium, gathering dried leaves and roots into jars, labeling them in delicate script with Latin names: salvia, mentha, angelica, hyssopus. The words taste older than time itself, each one a doorway to centuries of practice and prayer. You stop to sniff a bundle of dried lavender, sweet, soft, calming. Brother Simeon notices and gives a small nod of approval. The scent stays with you. When you walk the cloister path once more, your sandals soft against the flagstones, you notice how the snow has begun to thaw along the edges. Small rivulets of meltwater gather in the grooves between stones, trickling like silver veins through the monastery's quiet skin. The world, even here, is changing. At midday, you eat your final meal in the refectory barley stew again, and a single slice of bread. The flavor is plain, but comforting. There is nothing harsh about it. No surprise, no indulgence. Only warmth and fullness, the kind that lingers in the stomach long after the bowl is empty. You glance down the row of silent monks. They chew slowly, deliberately, each of them within the quiet world of their thoughts. You take your final spoonful and let it settle. Then, at the abbot's silent signal, you make your way to the chapel for one last private prayer. The room is empty. Only the candles flicker. You kneel, as you have each day, on the same worn stones. You fold your hands, you close your eyes, and you breathe. You do not speak. There is nothing more to ask for. Nothing more to say, just the cold touch of stone, the waxy smell of old candles, and the long, quiet exhale of something sacred. When you rise, your knees are stiff, but your mind is still. The brothers gather near the gate. No speeches, no embraces, just quiet bows, nods, hands resting briefly over hearts. A few glance your way and hold your gaze for a beat longer than usual. Brother Oswin gives you a small jar of honey from the monastery hives, wrapped in waxed linen. You tuck it into your pack without words. That gesture alone speaks louder than any farewell. The gatekeeper opens the great wooden doors. They creak as if sighing. Beyond lies the same world you left behind just 7 days ago. And yet it looks different now, colder, louder, unfolded. You step outside. The snow crunches beneath your feet, and the wind brushes your cheeks like a waking hand. You do not look back, not because you're glad to go, but because you know the monastery remains. It will keep singing, keep working, keep praying, with or without you. You walk slowly down the slope toward the forest path. The bells behind you chime the hour. You count them. 1, 2, 3, and then let them fade. As you move farther from the monastery, the silence within begins to peel away. The world returns, branches cracking, birds calling, wind tugging at your cloak. But beneath all that noise, the rhythm remains. You feel it in the beat of your steps, the echo of songs in your chest, the memory of morning frost on your fingertips. You pass a stream and stop to drink. The water is cold and sharp, a vivid contrast to the muted monastery well. It wakes something in you, a reminder that life beyond the walls is not less sacred. only louder. You dry your hands on your sleeve and continue. That night, you camp beneath a tree near the road. The stars above you feel impossibly wide. You eat from a small bundle of bread and cheese, and a pinch of dried fruit gifted to you by Brother Allard. You unscrew the jar of honey and take a spoonful. It is thick, golden, and impossibly sweet. You smile into the night, because now you understand this too is sacred. This hunger, this cold, this silence. Because the monastery did not teach you how to escape the world. It taught you how to see it, even here. Especially here. You lie down on the frozen ground, wrap your cloak tighter, and close your eyes beneath the stars. And as sleep takes you, a single chant hums faintly in the back of your mind, soft and old and steady. The rhythm never left. It never will. When dawn breaks, you're not inside the monastery anymore, but its rhythm pulses still beneath your skin. The cold wind stings sharper now, without its stone walls to protect you. Birds call overhead, breaking the kind of silence that's no longer sacred, but wild and unstructured, chaotic in its freedom. You sit up slowly beneath the bare-branched tree, feeling every bone in your spine shift like an old door creaking open. The earth beneath you is hard. The sky above you, gray and endless, and yet something in you remains still, grounded, different. You walk the path in silence. The snow crunches beneath your feet in familiar rhythm, step, step, breath. The cadence feels almost like a chant, and you realize this is the first time in years that you are not in a rush. You're not walking towards something. You're simply walking, because time is no longer your master. Bells do not summon you now, but you still feel them. Ghost chimes in the bones, calling you to pause, to breathe, to notice. By mid-morning, you arrive at a small village market. The world rushes. Again, people shout greetings. Children tumble in woman cloaks. Carts roll, animals bray. There's laughter, clatter, life in full clamor. You stand at the edge of it, your pack heavy on your shoulder, the honey jar tucked safely inside. For a moment, it overwhelms you. The noise, the color, the movement. It strikes you like a wave, raking across. Still water, but you do not shrink from it. You let it pass over you and remain still within. You step forward. Buy a small loaf of coarse rye bread from a woman with flour-dusted hands. You trade only a few coins. She smiles, and you nod not out of politeness, but genuine gratitude. You take your bread to the side of a barn and sit in the sun. Tear off a piece, let it rest on your tongue. It's dry, bitter at the edges, but nourishing, real, and somehow sacred. A boy watches you eat, not out of curiosity, he's just idle. But he notices your robes, the monastic cut, the tucked hands. You a monk? He asks, scrunching his nose. You smile gently, shake your head. Not quite. And that's true, isn't it? You were not ordained, you did not stay. But part of you, some kernel of what was shaped behind the cloister walls, has settled permanently. As the boy wanders off. You reach into your pack and take out the tablet of notes you wrote during your days in the scriptorium. It's small, just a few lines in smudged charcoal. There is peace in small things, holiness in repetition, clarity in stillness. You trace the words with your thumb. The wind threatens to tear the page, but you fold it gently and tuck it back. Not to preserve it, but to carry it. As you travel farther through the countryside, the landscape begins to unfold in its winter grays and pale greens. Sheep dot distant hillsides like lumps of wool. Smoke rises in twisting plumes from unseen hearths. You pass a lone shepherd whistling to his dog, and for a brief second you imagine him pausing in his field for vespers, whispering an ancient prayer beneath the sky, unseen by anyone but the wind and the sheep and God. There is something monastic in him, and you wonder, have there always been monasteries beyond walls, in ways of walking, in quiet acts, in the eyes of those who speak less and listen more? You arrive at a shallow brook and kneel to drink. The water is icy, and it shocks your hands as it spills between your fingers. The pain wakes you fully. But even in that sharp moment, there is a kind of reverence. You wipe your palms on your cloak and sit back against a tree stump. The day moves slowly around you. No appointments, no obligations, just motion, breath, sunlight dappled through cloud. You nap, and when you wake, the shadows have shifted, and your thoughts turn to them. The monks, the brothers who sang beside you, who tilled the frozen garden, who bowed in the cold at midnight, never questioning why. You realize how little you knew of them, and yet how closely you felt them. You didn't speak, but you understood. They were not saints. They were tired men with blistered fingers and sore knees, but they gave themselves fully to a life of quiet service 1 hour at a time, and in doing so they left a mark on you that no voice could. Later that evening, as the sun sinks behind the hills and the sky turns soft violet, you find shelter in an abandoned shepherd's hut. Just 3 walls and a roof, but dry and silent. You light a small fire with what little kindling you have. Its smoke curls into the air like the incense you used to breathe at matins, swirling in slow spirals. The scent is different wood and moss, but the feeling it stirs is the same. A small living flame, a pulse of warmth in a world of cold. You eat the last of your bread, spoon a final dollop of monastery honey onto it. The sweetness coats your tongue. It is simple and unforgettable, not because it is rare, but because it was given to you with care, without words, without claim. A gift. You lie back on your bedroll and stare through a hole in the roof, where one single star begins to glimmer. You think of Brother Wulfric's strong arms lifting robes from icy water, Brother Simeon whispering herb names through crooked teeth, the robin in the garden, the hymn rising with your breath. You smile, not because it's over, but because at I sin single quotes T. The week has ended. The rhythm remains. You close your eyes and let that rhythm carry you into sleep. No bells needed. When dawn breaks, you're not inside the monastery anymore, but its rhythm pulses still beneath your skin. The cold wind stings sharper now without its stone walls to protect you. Birds call overhead, breaking the kind of silence that's no longer sacred, but wild and unstructured, chaotic in its freedom. You sit up slowly beneath the bare-branched tree, feeling every bone in your spine shift like an old door creaking open. The earth beneath you is hard, the sky above you gray and endless, and yet something in you remains still, grounded, different. You walk the path in silence. The snow crunches beneath your feet in familiar rhythm step. step, breath. The cadence feels almost like a chant, and you realize this is the first time in years that you are not in a rush. You're not walking towards something. You're simply walking, because time is no longer your master. Bells do not summon you now, but you still feel them. Ghost chimes in the bones, calling you to pause, to breathe, to notice. By mid-morning, you arrive at a small village market. The world rushes. Again, people shout greetings. Children tumble in woolen cloaks. Carts roll, animals bray. There's laughter, clatter, life in full clamor. You stand at the edge of it, your pack heavy on your shoulder, the honey jar tucked safely inside. For a moment, it overwhelms you. The noise, the color, the movement. It strikes you like a wave, breaking across. Still water, but you do not shrink from it. You let it pass over you and remain still within. You step forward. Buy a small loaf of coarse, rye bread from a woman with flour-dusted hands. You trade only a few coins. She smiles, and you nod not out of politeness, but genuine gratitude. You take your bread to the side of a barn and sit in the sun. Tear off a piece. Let it rest on your tongue. It's dry, bitter at the edges, but nourishing, real, and somehow sacred. A boy watches you eat, not out of curiosity. He's just idle. But he notices your robes, the monastic cut, the tucked hands. "You a monk?" he asks, scrunching his nose. You smile gently, shake your head. "Not quite. And that's true, isn't it? You were not ordained. You did not stay. But part of you, some kernel of what was shaped behind the cloister walls, has settled permanently. As the boy wanders off, you reach into your pack and take out the tablet of notes you wrote during your days in the scriptorium. It's small, just a few lines in smudged charcoal. There is peace in small things, holiness in repetition, clarity in stillness. You trace the words with your thumb. The wind threatens to tear the page, but you fold it gently and tuck it back. Not to preserve it, but to carry it. As you travel farther through the countryside, the landscape begins to unfold in its winter grays and pale greens. Sheep dot distant hillsides like lumps of wool. Smoke rises in twisting plumes from unseen hearths. You pass a lone shepherd whistling to his dog, and for a brief second you imagine him pausing in his field for vespers, whispering an ancient prayer beneath the sky, unseen by anyone but the wind and the sheep and God. There is something monastic in him, and you wonder, have there always been monasteries beyond walls, in ways of walking, in quiet acts, in the eyes of those who speak less and listen more? You arrive at a shallow brook and kneel to drink. The water is icy, and it shocks your hands as it spills between your fingers. The pain wakes you fully. But even in that sharp moment, there is a kind of reverence. You wipe your palms on your cloak and sit back against a tree stump. The day moves slowly around you. No appointments. No obligations, just motion, breath, sunlight dappled through cloud. You nap, and when you wake, the shadows have shifted, and your thoughts turn to them, the monks, the brothers who sang beside you, who tilled the frozen garden, who bowed in the cold at midnight, never questioning why. You realize how little you knew of them, and yet how closely you felt them. You didn't speak, but you understood. They were not saints. They were tired men with blistered fingers and sore knees, but they gave themselves fully to a life of quiet service, 1 hour at a time, and in doing so they left a mark on you that no voice could. Later that evening, as the sun sinks behind the hills and the sky turns soft violet, you find shelter in an abandoned shepherd's hut, just 3 walls and a roof, but dry and silent. You light a small fire with what little kindling you have. Its smoke curls into the air like the incense you used to breathe at matins, swirling in slow spirals. The scent is different wood and moss, but the feeling it stirs is the same, a small living flame. A pulse of warmth in a world of cold. You eat the last of your bread. Spoon a final dollop of monastery honey onto it. The sweetness coats your tongue. It is simple and unforgettable, not because it is rare, but because it was given to you with care, without words, without claim. A gift. You lie back on your bedroll and stare through a hole in the roof, where one single star begins to glimmer. You think of Brother Wulfric's strong arms lifting robes from icy water, Brother Simeon whispering herb names through crooked teeth, the robin in the garden, the hymn rising with your breath. You smile, not because it's over, but because it ice and single quotes T. The week has ended. The rhythm remains. You close your eyes and let that rhythm carry you into sleep. No bells needed. When dawn breaks, you're not inside the monastery anymore, but its rhythm pulses still beneath your skin. The cold wind stings sharper now without its stone walls to protect you. Birds call overhead, breaking the kind of silence that's no longer sacred, but wild and unstructured, chaotic in its freedom. You sit up slowly beneath the bare-branched tree, feeling every bone in your spine shift like an old door creaking open. The earth beneath you is hard, the sky above you gray and endless, and yet something in you remains still, grounded, different. You walk the path in silence. The snow crunches beneath your feet in familiar rhythm, step, step, breath. The cadence feels almost like a chant, and you realize this is the first time in years that you are not in a rush. You're not walking towards something. You're simply walking, because time is no longer your master. Bells do not summon you now, but you still feel them. Ghost chimes in the bones, calling you to pause, to breathe, to notice. By mid-morning, you arrive at a small village market. The world rushes. Again, people shout greetings. Children tumble in woolen cloaks. Carts roll, animals bray. There's laughter, clatter, life in full clamor. You stand at the edge of it, your pack heavy on your shoulder, the honey jar tucked safely inside. For a moment it overwhelms you. The noise, the color, the movement. It strikes you like a wave, breaking across. Still water. But you do not shrink from it. You let it pass over you and remain still within. You step forward. Buy a small loaf of coarse rye bread from a woman with flour-dusted hands. You trade only a few coins. She smiles, and you nod not out of politeness, but genuine gratitude. You take your bread to the side of a barn and sit in the sun. Tear off a piece. Let it rest on your tongue. It's dry, bitter at the edges, but nourishing, real, and somehow sacred. A boy watches you eat, not out of curiosity, he's just idle, but he notices your robes, the monastic cut, the tucked hands. You a monk? He asks, scrunching his nose. You smile gently, shake your head. Not quite. And that's true, isn't it? You were not ordained. You did not stay. But part of you, some kernel of what was shaped behind the cloister walls, has settled permanently. As the boy wanders off, you reach into your pack and take out the tablet of notes you wrote during your days in the scriptorium. It's small, just a few lines in smudged charcoal. There is peace in small things, holiness in repetition, clarity in stillness. You trace the words with your thumb. The wind threatens to tear the page, but you fold it gently and tuck it back. Not to preserve it, but to carry it. As you travel farther through the countryside, the landscape begins to unfold in its winter grays and pale greens. Sheep dot distant hillsides like lumps of wool. Smoke rises in twisting plumes from unseen hearths. You pass a lone shepherd whistling to his dog, and for a brief second you imagine him pausing in his field for vespers, whispering an ancient prayer beneath the sky, unseen by anyone but the wind and the sheep and God. There is something monastic in him, and you wonder, have there always been monasteries beyond walls, and ways of walking, and quiet acts? In the eyes of those who speak less and listen more, you arrive at a shallow brook and kneel to drink. The water is icy, and it shocks your hands as it spills between your fingers. The pain wakes you fully. But even in that sharp moment, there is a kind of reverence. You wipe your palms on your cloak and sit back against a tree stump. The day moves slowly around you. No appointments, no obligations, just motion, breath, sunlight dappled through cloud. You nap, and when you wake, the shadows have shifted, and your thoughts turn to them, the monks, the brothers who sang beside you. Who tilled the frozen garden, who bowed in the cold at midnight, never questioning why. You realize how little you knew of them, and yet how closely you felt them. You didn't speak, but you understood. They were not saints. They were tired men with blistered fingers and sore knees, but they gave themselves fully to a life of quiet service, 1 hour at a time, and in doing so they left a mark on you that no voice could. Later that evening, as the sun sinks behind the hills and the sky turns soft violet, you find shelter in an abandoned shepherd's hut, just 3 walls and a roof, but dry and silent. You light a small fire with what little kindling you have. Its smoke curls into the air like the incense you used to breathe at matins, swirling in slow spirals. The scent is different wood and moss, but the feeling it stirs is the same, a small living flame, a pulse of warmth in a world of cold. You eat the last of your bread, spoon a final dollop of monastery honey onto it. The sweetness coats your tongue. It is simple and unforgettable, not because it is rare, but because it was given to you with care, without words, without claim. A gift. You lie back on your bedroll and stare through a hole in the roof, where one single star begins to glimmer. You think of Brother Wulfric's strong arms lifting robes from icy water, Brother Simeon whispering herb names through crooked teeth, the robin in the garden, the hymn rising with your breath. You smile, not because it's over, but because at ice in single quotes the week has ended. The rhythm remains. You close your eyes and let that rhythm carry you into sleep. No bells needed. Morning comes with the gentle scrape of a cartwheel outside and the call of a cockerel, muffled by thick stone walls. You lie in bed for a while before rising, not out of laziness, but out of something else, something the monastery has given you, the habit of stillness before movement. You breathe slowly, letting your eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through the wooden shutters. You notice how your body feels tired but not strained, calm, not numb. The world outside stirs around you, but you feel no rush to meet it. When you finally swing your legs over the side of the bed, your bare feet touch cool wooden floorboards. You take your time washing your face, brushing down your robe, and folding the thin blanket at the foot of the cot as though it were one of the monastery's linen sheets. It's a quiet gesture, a small ritual. But that's the point. Every act can be sacred when performed with care. The monastery taught you that, though it never said it aloud. Downstairs the inn is already full of life. Travelers with red cheeks and thick cloaks drink ale and speak of muddy roads and harvest fairs. You take your meal at the far end of a long wooden table, just bread and broth. Though the innkeeper offers more, you politely decline. The simplicity of the monastery has remained with you. The rhythm, the restraint. It's not about denying yourself, it's about noticing what is already enough. After breakfast, you step outside into air that's damp and rich with the scent of soil and chimney smoke. The sky is heavy with low clouds, but the day feels open, full of quiet possibility. You walk through the village, past shops and homes, past a weaver's stall where dyed wool hangs like prayer flags. The sounds of hammers on anvils, the squawk of chickens, and the murmur of conversation all blend into a single, earthy song of life continuing unaware of your silent witnessing. You find a small chapel on the hill, made of uneven stones and topped with a crooked wooden cross. The door creaks as you push it open, and the inside smells of old incense, melted wax, and damp timber. There is no service today, no priest in sight. Just a few benches and a cold altar draped in linen. You sit quietly at the back, folding your hands in your lap. You don't pray in words, you don't need to. You simply let the silence settle inside your ribs like breath drawn in and never fully released. The candle at the altar sputters slightly, fighting a draft from a broken window pane. You rise, approach, and shield the flame with your hand until it steadies. That single motion brings a strange, sharp warmth to your chest. Not pride, not nostalgia, something gentler, like tending a garden you no longer own but still love. You leave a single coin in the offering bowl and walk slowly down the hill. At the base, a child chases a goat across the green, and a woman hangs fresh linens from a line. You pause and watch. The world keeps moving. That evening you are invited to join a family for supper. The man recognizes your robe and says his brother was once a novice. You nod and accept, bringing nothing but yourself as you were taught. The meal is humble pottage thick with root vegetables, some rough brown bread, and a cup of warm cider. The conversation is low and kind. You speak little, but listen deeply, and they seem to understand, perhaps even welcome your silence as its own kind of contribution. As dusk falls, you help gather firewood from behind the cottage. The daughter, a girl of perhaps 10, walks beside you and asks if you're a priest. You smile and shake your head. Just someone who lived with monks for a while. She nods solemnly and says she thinks that makes you a little like a ghost. You laugh softly, not mockingly, There's truth in her words. You do feel changed, lighter somehow, less tethered, as if part of you was left behind, sealed into those old monastery stones like heat into a hearth. That night, they offer you a mat near the fire. You lie on your side, eyes half-lidded, listening to the creak of the roof beams and the slow settling of the house into sleep. Someone stirs under a blanket. A dog snores. Embers pop and hiss. And in that warmth, you remember the cold stone floor of the chapel, the early hours, the breath hanging in the dark, and the weight of a silence you never knew could teach. You drift off not with a thought, but with a rhythm and echo in your bones. You are not dreaming of leaving or returning. You are simply breathing in a world that has been made wider by a week behind those cloistered walls. Tomorrow will come. But for now, the stillness holds. The following morning is overcast, and a fine drizzle clings to the air as you set off again. The path ahead leads east through low-lying fields and wooded groves. The weather is not severe, but the persistent moisture seeps into your garments and weighs on your steps. Nonetheless, you continue, moved not by urgency, but by the internal rhythm, now familiar from your days in the monastery. Your route passes through cultivated land. Peasants are already at work tilling, harvesting winter greens, checking stone walls for damage after recent winds. These are routine tasks, executed with practiced efficiency, and you recognize in them the same discipline you witnessed in the monastery. There is no complaint in their movement, only repetition, necessity, and quiet perseverance. This labor, though secular, mirrors the monastic view. Each task, however small, is a part of sustaining something larger than the individual dot at midday. You stop beside a small stream to rest. You eat a modest meal, lentils wrapped in cloth, an apple and the last crust of bread gifted to you. You drink directly from the stream, noting how you've begun to assess water the way the monks did, by clarity, scent, and temperature. These observations now come naturally. You consider how many modern conveniences were absent in the monastery. No clocks, no fire unless kindled, no waste permitted. Life was regulated not by external compulsion, but by mutual expectation and divine order. As you resume your journey, your thoughts return to the rule of Saint Benedict, which governed the monastery's daily life. You recall passages read aloud during mealtime instructions on humility, silence, obedience. These were not merely moral ideals, but logistical systems for maintaining order and reducing conflict among men confined together in silence. You consider how these structures, while austere, created space for personal reflection, a commodity often absent in the world outside. By late afternoon, you reach another village. This one is smaller than the last, centered around a wooden chapel and a common well. A local merchant offers you shelter in exchange for helping to repair the roof of his grain shed. The work is physical and slow, but familiar. As you lift timbers and hammer joints, your mind focuses on rhythm and breath techniques learned in the monastery garden and woodshop. The idea that labor can be a form of prayer now resonates with precision, not metaphor. Practice. That evening, seated on a bench beneath the eaves, you speak briefly with the merchant's elderly father. He asks if the monks still maintain their fasts during the long winter nights. You affirm that they do, breaking silence only for prayer. observing vigils even when frost gathers on their blankets. He nods, and there is no surprise in his face. The expectation is embedded in cultural memory, even among those who left the cloistered life generations ago. You sleep in the merchant's loft above the grain store. The straw bedding is uneven but dry. Wind whistles through the wall slats, but you are insulated by your robe and cloak. Before you close your eyes, you mentally trace the canonical hours: matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, compline, as if reciting coordinates. You no longer need the bell to know where you are in the day dot, and as you drift into sleep, you are aware that your week at the monastery has not ended, it has transitioned. The silence, the structure, the attention to the smallest motions, all of it persists. The monastery is no longer a place you visited, but a framework that now informs how you move through the world. You sleep not as a traveler, but as someone in alignment with an older rhythm. The next morning breaks slowly, with soft light spilling through gaps in the loft's wooden siding. Dust hangs in the beams like 1,000 tiny stars caught between sleep and waking. You rise quietly, bundle your things, and descend the ladder, nodding a silent farewell to the merchant and his family. Words are offered, but you reply with gestures grateful, measured. You have grown used to communication that leaves space for quiet. Your road turns north now, winding through open fields, where the hedgerows thin and the villages grow scarcer. The sky feels taller here, pale and overcast, with a wind that seems to push you forward without asking. You pass old Roman stones by the roadside markers from centuries past, still standing, moss-covered and stoic. Time folds gently around you. You walk not as someone going somewhere, but as someone carried by the momentum of having once been still. There is no monastery in sight anymore, and yet the way you hold your breath at the sound of a distant bird call, how your body still pauses at certain hours without effort, how your hands touch bark or water or the handle of your satchel as though each were an object of ritual. It all tells you that the monastery is still with you, not as a memory, but as a rhythm, a structure that your body continues to follow long after the bells have faded. You come to a place where the forest curves around an open glade. There you sit beneath a beech tree, unwrapping the last of your dried herbs, tucking a few leaves. Into the hot water you've boiled over a small flame. The scent rises bitter, grounding. You sip slowly and think of Brother Simeon, hunched in his herbarium, hands stained and gentle. You remember how he once placed a single sprig of thyme on your sleeve and said only, "This one's for listening." You never asked what he meant. You didn't need to. A pair of travelers pass through the glade. They ask for directions. You answer softly, clearly. When they thank you, you nod and watch them go with calm detachment. You do not feel called to follow or to explain. The urge to fill space with words has evaporated like morning frost. Silence has become a form of literacy one. Few people ever learn to read, but which you now speak fluently. That evening, you make camp near a stone wall overgrown with ivy. You gather a few dry branches and set a slow fire, not to banish darkness, but to keep it company. The flames crackle gently, casting shadows that dance across your knees. You open your pack and remove the jar of monastery honey, now nearly empty. You tip it and let the last golden drop fall onto a scrap of bread. It tastes sweeter than it did on the first day, not because the honey has changed, but because you sleep that night in perfect quiet. No bells, no chanting, just the wind in the branches and the breath in your chest. Your dreams are soft, and in them you walk once more through the cloister. But this time there are no monks, no voices, just the light, the garden, and the echo of your own footsteps. You move through it not as a guest, but as a memory embedded in the stone. When you wake, the sky is pink and gold and silver. And in your final morning moment before you rise and continue your walk into the world, you whisper a prayer, not in Latin, not in recitation, but in breath and intention, a silent thank you, a farewell to silence that never really leaves, because the truth is this: you didn't last a week in the monastery. You were transformed by it, and now, every breath you take, every path you walk, every moment of stillness is a continuation of that quiet life. You are no longer within the monastery walls, but they live within you now, forever, and somewhere, not so far away as mist curls through, the valley and sparrows rise from frost-kissed branches. A bell chimes, and your heart answers it, without sound, without effort, without end.